What about like before an audition or in the room? Do you have anything you do? Like, are you run lines constantly in the car up until you get there, or do you turn on a specific type of music, or
that's really
in the waiting room, do you size up the competition or anything like that?
Those are great questions. It's kind of all, and I mentioned to you, I have a toddler who's turning 3 this week. All of my life prior to having her, like, I think that I was so in my head, and I would, be running through the lines, and I would be, when I get into the room, looking at all the different people and being like, oh, okay, they're going with, like, this vibe, or, like, I need to, like, I should have brought my glasses. I didn't bring my glasses. Everybody else is wearing glasses, and spinning and having all of those unhealthy thoughts. Now, half of the time...
Those are unhealthy?
Well... I don't think they're necessarily keeping you...
My car's not my only problem.
Oh, yeah. I don't think that's keeping you in the moment-to-moment world, potentially.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's now, half of the time, I end up having to bring my daughter with me. Yeah, it's basically an oh-no situation, but it's kind of what I've... often have to do. She's gotten really awesome about, basically, I just plug... her headphones on and she'll watch some Paw Patrol. But in the midst of that, like in the audition room, I'm like trying to make sure the Paw Patrol is on and getting her in there and saying like, please don't scream about anything.
Yeah.
And so all of the noise about the audition itself and spinning and making sure that I'm remembering each and every single line and doing all of that stuff. I am so waylaid by having to deal with this crazy person who I love and adore, that I don't have time to think about it, which I think at the end of the day is actually helpful.
Super helpful, I would imagine.
As long as I can have, as long as I can have like a 30 seconds before I go in to be like, okay, let me take one breath. Let me remember my first line and like know what I'm trying to do here. As long as I can have that beforehand, then I'm good. Occasionally, I'm still scrambling, trying to get Peppa Pig or whatever on my phone for those 5 minutes, and it's not going well, and the Wi-Fi isn't happening, and they're screaming for me to come in, and I'm just like, oh, shit. Figure it out, kid. And, that's not the most ideal situation.
That's kind of crazy, though, because it's like what you said. Then you're in the moment when you get in there. You're there. You're not overanalyzing it beforehand. Exactly. Which is interesting, because right before you got here, I was texting a buddy of mine who was like just talking to me, and I was like, I hate before podcasts the like 5 minutes where I'm just sitting here waiting for the guest, because then I like go through all these like weird scenarios that will never happen but could happen.
Yeah.
And I just start getting in my head when I don't need to.
Yeah, you clearly know what you're doing.
Right.
So,
and it's the same thing with auditions, where it's just that period where you don't have any distraction and suddenly you're overanalyzing what you're about to do. So that's kind of great with the kid aspect.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. As a person who auditions for a lot of dad roles and commercials, I run in this a lot. I had a callback this week where a mom
Congratulations. That's always
good. I didn't
good.
book it. Whatever. But a mom brought in her daughter, and I always feel bad because you have to bring in your daughter, but part of me is kind of like, oh, she brought her daughter, and she used it to her advantage, obviously. Like, she went in there with the kid and was like, oh, I got to go. She brought the kid in and then was like, oh, I got to go leave it with my friend. And then the people that were directing her were like, oh, she's so cute. Let's see. And so I was kind of like, oh, she's stealing the room from me right now.
Interesting.
Do any of these thoughts go through your head when you're bringing your kid, or are you just hyper aware of you have a kid that you have their life is in your
I have so many questions about this. This was at the callback that she brought her in? Okay, that's ballsy. I've had to do that a couple of times myself. Was it like a baby, or was it a kid?
It had 4 legs or 2 legs.
And then no wonder why you didn't book the dad role when we can't identify with any loose interpretation how old this child was.
She's 2.
Okay. I mean, like she's capable of walking.
Yeah.
He or she was capable of walking.
Barely. A little bit. Like, yeah.
Okay.
I would have been uncomfortable if she was walking around. But she was like standing up playing with shit, but like.
Yeah. I would not have brought my kid in, which is not to judge the mom, because like that's so like challenging, and maybe like she knew the people
into the entire
room.
place, or into the room?
Of course into like the green room,
right?
Yeah, and like the waiting room. Yes, of course. Yes.
You have to. If you have the kid, you have to bring him in.
I'm not going to leave her in the car. I get in a lot of trouble when I do that. But yeah, I mean, I definitely don't try to use it to my advantage. I wouldn't ever do that. I would only like introduce her to casting people or to like somebody like the director, like creatives, if I knew them.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't be doing that just because I feel like they could think she's cute and wonderful. My kid could have a complete meltdown. They might be worried that I can't get childcare.
Right.
And I'm going to be bringing my kid on, to set with me, and that creates like a whole set of spitting things. I remember I was up a couple of years ago for a series of ads for GE that was going to be during the Olympics. And I had just had my daughter, and she was like 4 months old, and it was going to require me to fly to New York and to Ohio and to do stuff in LA as well. And I was made it to the callbacks, and I think I was maybe on a veil for it. And I was just panicked. I was like, oh, geez. How the F? And they ended up changing the callback time. So instead of being able to take her to the babysitter, I had to bring her with me, and they had somebody, this was at 2701 Ocean Park. And
that's where mine was.
Yes, that's where I typically get sent Mom. To. Yes, lots of mom as well. But yeah, they had somebody who was able to watch her just because they had changed it up with like a half an hour notice on it for me. But yeah, I find it not ideal to bring her, so I want to have as low of an impact visibility as possible. I appreciate that. Yes, and also like I feel awkward, sorry to interrupt, but like also I often ask like somebody who's going to be going in, I was like, do you mind just making sure that my child doesn't run away or get taken by somebody while she's watching television? And everybody is typically gracious and lovely about it, but it's anxiety inducing certainly, and not an ideal situation.
Yeah. Because I might have phrased the question wrong, but it's just like, I don't want to be the asshole who's like, come on, why are you doing this? But at the same time, I get why you have to bring it. You can't just abandon your child.
Well, and it's tough when you have, I'm sure as you know, like oftentimes same day appointments or stuff and scrambling to try to find a babysitter if you don't have somebody regularly there. It's tough.
I was having this conversation with a coworker this week about like flights and how they need family flights, because it's like, oh, yeah. If you have to take your kid on a flight, you have to take your kid on a flight.
Yeah.
And I don't judge you for that, but if they're going to be making noise and they're going to be disrupting me, it affects me, and it's like, I don't want to be the asshole that calls that out, but at the same time, it's like, so it feels very similar to audition. So maybe I'm sounding really pretentious right now, but it's just like, I was at before this callback, there was 2 kids walking around the audition room trying to sell Girl Scout cookies. And I was like, maybe we have completely different bids on this, but I was like, get the fuck out. Are you kidding me? Come on. Don't solicit us while we're trying to fucking focus on what we're doing.
True that, but I feel like they probably had a very smart idea of having a captive audience.
Don't get me wrong. They sold a shit ton of cookies. And I couldn't be mad at them, but it was like, there's a weird line where it's like, yes, you have to bring your child, and yes, there are children auditioning, but it's...
it is still a workplace environment, and yes, it is not necessarily being solicitous of that, but it's tough, like you said, when there are often other kids auditioning there for the mom and dad.
But I like how it helps you. Back to your experience, that's really fascinating to think about, because it's anything that can get you out of your head. It seems like a benefit.
Yeah, I say it helps me 60 to 70% of of the time. There are certainly percentages where it derails and is not helpful, and it is
probably
not
makes
ideal.
You underprepared or something.
Yeah, potentially underprepared. Hopefully I will have done my homework the night before, and especially if I can have a babysitter, then I feel like I am super focused, and then I want to get home to relieve the babysitter, so that can be ideal. And then I enjoy, the 1 to 2 hours myself, where I can just have quiet time.